Good morning and welcome to our devotions for a new week. It is indeed a joy to be back with you again this week. I trust that you had a wonderful weekend, and if you had the opportunity to join in a place of worship or online with one of the fellowship groups, I pray that it was rewarding, uplifting, and that you are all set for the week ahead. It is always a joy at the beginning of the week to greet you and trust that during the week God may reveal to us all some wonderful new understanding so that we continue to draw closer to divine in this time. So welcome, and it is truly good to have you here with me. I invite you to find your nice space where you can be still and know that God is with us in this moment and that all is well. All is truly well. So we begin our day as we go into our time of meditation, and we take a deep breath as is our custom. And as we take a deep breath and feel the divine presence around us, just have that sense that God is here, that there's a special energy surrounding us. And as we breathe in from that beauty, from that depth of love, from that presence. As we breathe out into it, allowing what we breathe out to be renewed, in order that we can breathe in afresh. For all is contained in this wonderful divine presence. Nothing is outside of God. Everything is in God. And so, as we come into this time, and we want to keep the Lord before us, so that we may be shown the path. We want to keep the Lord before us so we may be shown the path. And so this week, we want to be able to bring into our imaginations a path, and to perceive that just a little ahead of us on this path is a presence. And our task is to draw as close as we possibly can to this presence. And we find that to do so, we need to lighten our load. We need to release various things in our lives. The things that are slowing us down and causing us to be out of step with the divine. The closer we get, the more of that divine presence we experience, and the lighter our footsteps become. When we allow life to weigh us down, we feel heavy, and our footsteps slow down, and we drop back, and we don't feel that presence as we used to. And sometimes it is so overbearing that even though we realize that we are dropping back and we're not as close as we used to be, the weight is so heavy upon us. And it even pretends to be a part of us in ways that we find difficulty in divesting ourselves of that weight. But if we focus on that presence ahead of us, the divine that's within us connects to that divine presence ahead of us. And we begin to know once more what is me and what is the load I carry. And when I discern what is me, I'm better able to free myself from this load. And because we're traveling together, we offer each other help along the way and encouragement. So we reach out with our left hands, the palm facing downward and our right palm facing upward. And we reach out, requesting to be connected to each other. To use this connection to assist each other in lifting ourselves from the weightiness of our world and bringing us all together more closely bound to the divine presence. Just for a few moments, I just want you to sense the hand of the other two persons on either side of you. You can choose who you want to be next to you. They don't have to be here online with us now, but you can bring them in your mind's eye, in your heart, and place one on the left and one on the right. Place on the right the person that you believe mostly need that divine gift this day. Place on your left someone who lifts you up, who encourages you, who feeds you, who nourishes you in divine things. And place in your heart center that openness to receive and to pass on. Just to spend a moment or two in that space, receiving and giving. Receiving, magnifying, endorsing, and giving. And today I want you to join me as I lead you in this prayer. I want you to pray it yourself with me. Go before me, O God, for in you I take refuge. Each day as I awaken, I pray that I may see and follow more and more with greater assurance the way that is set for me. In you I desire to place my all. Assist me in this work of allowing and accepting, just as those of old who trusted you to lead them have done. Hear the prayer of my heart this day. Amen. go into our reading for this morning. We turn to Matthew's Gospel, chapter 16, verse 21 to 26. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord, this must never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. For you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. And Jesus told his disciples, If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? Here ends the reading. And so we hear this morning that episode in Jesus' life where he shares with his disciples what is ahead of him. And Peter is concerned because, in all fairness, this is his close friend, this is his teacher, this is his master. This is someone he loves dearly. And so Peter is not very excited about this kind of news, and Peter tries to persuade him that that's not going to happen. And this is something we do normally. You know, someone is very ill and they start to speak of the possibility of their death, and we say, no, don't talk like that. You know, you're going to get through this. You're going to get through this. And in reality, we have no evidence to base that assumption on. But we are saying that sometimes more about ourselves or more for ourselves than really for the other person. What we're really saying is, I can't deal with it if you don't make it through this. And so it's that kind of sense that we can probably look at Peter's engagement with Jesus. But Jesus quite rightly calls him to task on it, and he says that you're focusing in the wrong place. You're not focusing on heavenly things, you're focusing on human things. And that's where we are for the most part in our journey. We focus on human things. It's not easy focusing on heavenly things. And this is one of the reasons why this week we are looking at a theme that I've picked up out of the 16th Psalm that says that we keep the Lord ever before us. Keep the Lord ever before us, that he may show us the path. This is important, that we really understand how important it is for us to keep God before us so that he can show us the path of our life. Jesus sought to do that, and he did that through his constant life of prayer, always bringing the Father before him, bringing the Father's presence right before him. And this is the only way that we can focus on heavenly things. The writer of the Cloud of Unknowing says that there are two places of darkness and two clouds, in a sense. He says when we seek to engage God and we are reaching up, there's a cloud above us, and that's the cloud of unknowing. Unknowing in the sense that we don't have a clue what is there. We don't have a clue about who God really is. And this is the apophatic tradition, the way of negation. We don't have a clue about who God is. And so there's a darkness. And the darkness is not an ugly darkness. It's a darkness that occurs when you don't know. It's like a child being asked a question in school, and the child doesn't have a clue as to what the answer is. We would say that the child is drawing a blank. But is that blank that the author of the Cloud of Unknowing is referring to? It's a darkness. There is nothing there that one can draw on. So above us there's this cloud of unknowing, this darkness. But below us there's what he calls the cloud of forgetting. And you know, when you forget something, you've forgotten it. If you've forgotten where you put something, there's a darkness. No matter how hard you try, you can't seem to remember or bring an image of it. It is just darkness. And the author calls this lower darkness the cloud of forgetting. And he's saying that we must learn to forget this human experience in a sense, as we seek to embrace the divine, as we seek to reach up to ascend, we must forget, we must stand on the cloud of forgetting to free ourselves from that which would cling to us and prevent us from ascending into that cloud of unknowing. And it is that I'm asking us to focus on this week as we look at the theme, I keep the Lord ever before me, always before me, for you show me the path of life. Jesus could share this with his disciples about his impending events because he had the Father ever before him, and the Father was showing him the path of life. You and I don't need to travel this world in darkness or in ignorance. We have a path, we have a way of being in this world. And the way that we have being in this world is the way of having God ever before us. You wonder at times if we really took this seriously. I mean really seriously. If we took seriously really putting God ahead of us. You know, we constantly excuse ourselves from this by saying that, well, you know, you can't, as I heard one person say in a sermon, you can't be so heavenly minded that you're not earthly good. I heard that from a pulpit. Don't be too heavenly minded that you're not any earthly good. And I've got a problem with that. Because I know what the person is seeking to say, but it can convey the wrong message. You're probably trying to say that don't keep your head in the clouds because you got to realize you got to live in this world. But the way we live in this world is that we get consumed by this world. If we place God before us in everything, the guidance God gives us is not guidance about heavenly places. The guidance God gives us is guidance about journeying in this earth. The guidance God gave to Jesus was about what was going to happen to him in this world. Those who were earthly minded, like Peter, couldn't accept it. And that's our problem. Because we try not to be so heavenly minded. We try to keep ourselves, connected to the earth. But in being connected to the earth, we can embrace the grandness of the larger plan. And we stick with what we can handle. And we go through this life mediocre. What if Jesus would have stuck with Peter's plan? Where would you and I be today? This journey in this world is heavenly directed, but earthly lived. And we need to know that. And if we know that, then we would accept that if it is heavenly directed and earthly lived, then we need a heavenly director. We provide the actual living. So, dear friends, as we get our week off to start, a good start, let us give serious thought to all that we have learned through the years, all that we've heard, all that we've experienced through the reading of the gospel narrative, using Jesus as that wonderful example, the example of one who allowed himself to be heavenly directed and who lived such a wonderful life in this world. If we can use all these experiences, and rather than simply allowing them to be stories that we have heard about Jesus, but letting them now be our stories, stories that tell how we intend to live, then we could see a larger difference in our lives, and we can find ourselves truly walking the path of life that God has laid out for us. Keep the Father always before you, and He will show you constantly the path of life.